Welcome to this exciting tutorial. My name is Robert Farrell, and I'm going to share with you my production techniques. I've been using Adobe Illustrator, actually teaching Adobe Illustrator for 33 years here in New York City. Back in 1987 when I was 28. Just turned 61 in May, and if there's a smarter way to work with Adobe Illustrator, I have thousands of students all over the world that are benefiting from my production techniques. So today I'm going to share with you how to make mirror graphics the easy way. So let's get started. Let me pull up a couple of things here. So that's important. So for more information, you can get my free top 10 production techniques by going to thinkillustrator.com. Okay, so let's go over to Adobe Illustrator and share with you how I like to work. Okay, so the first thing I do is first of all close that window that I don't need. But the first thing I like to do is make my own custom workspace. I'm working in a workspace called Mirror, and I have Appearance, Brush, Layers, Swatch. They're always handy for me right there. Easy breezy, right there to the point. The other thing I do when I start a document, I'm going to hit the D key to default to black and white. Black and white is the D key. I'm going to keep this up here for later use. Now, I always start out a document by putting guides in the center. So I'm going to basically put a guide in the center. I mean, it's not exactly in the center, of course. In this particular case, I'm not actually going to make a guide. I'm actually going to use the P for pen tool. Now, before I go any further, I always start my doc by hitting the A tool. The A is the direct selection tool. The advantage of that tool, from this point on, say I'm in the brush tool and I want to move something, I can just hold down the command key to select and move. I don't have to go back to these tools every 10 seconds. So it's a very powerful technique. Whatever tool, if you initialize the direct selection tool first, so as an example, if I'm in the rotation tool and I pick a point to rotate from, and now I want to move it, I simply hold down the command key. On Windows, you would hold down the control key. So you'll hear me holding down that command key quite a bit to select something because I'm no lazy guy. I don't want to go up here every 10 seconds just to select something. Okay, so let's go to our P for pen tool. I'm going to create a guide roughly in the center. If it's not in the center, of course, I can go up here and align this to the center. So I'm going to create another also in the center. Okay, now here's an important step. Make a change, save a change. So what I'm now going to do is I have my appearance menu here. And the advantage of the appearance menu is that I can create effects. So the effects that I'm going to create, now before I go any further, I want to go to my layers palette and I'm going to take this horizontal guide and I'm going to put it in its own layer. And I'm just going to call that horizontal guide. And of course, I'm going to take this and drag this up to here and lock it into place. Now, a good production technique. What I want to do is affect this entire layer. So I can do that by clicking right here. This little icon here will basically affect the entire layer. So no matter what I do, it's going to affect that layer. So I'm going to go to my effects palette in the appearance menu. And I'm going to go to distort transform, and I'm going to reflect this on the x-axis with one copy and hit OK. Now, what that did for me is that basically created a reflection effect. So if I go back to my layers and I scroll down, I don't want to see this path. So I'm simply going to click the path and hide it. Make a change, save a change. So as an example, if I go back to my B for brush tool and I create a B for brush, sorry, my computer's acting slow because I'm doing a live webcast at the same time that I am saving, so I apologize about that. Boy, this is nuts. This has never really happened before, so don't know why this is happening. Very upsetting in a live webcast. Okay, so B for brush. So now if I create the right side, keep in mind that's my center line. So if I want to create something symmetrical, I can do that. So if I come out to here, actually, apparently my center line is here, so I probably made it screwed up here by not putting this exactly in the center. So I'm just going to move this over so it's in the center of that object. And I have smart guides on, so that will help me. My apologies. So now whatever I create with the brush tool and go back to that layer again, it's going to create it from the center. Now, here's what I want to share with you. I'm going to go to my ellipse tool, which is the letter L, and I'm going to create an ellipse. Now I'm going to hit the Shift X key to basically fill this with black and stroke it with none. Shift X will exchange that, and I'm going to create an ellipse. Now, pay no attention to this because I'm just going to use this as a brush. So in this particular case, to save time, I'm going to go to the Object menu and expand. What that's going to do is no longer create a mirror image. So if I go up here and expand, so I'm going to come here and I'm going to drag this down with my direct selection tool. Now, another way I can do this is with my scale tool. If I go to my S for scale tool and hit the return key, I'm going to scale this horizontally 0, vertically I'm going to start this at 80%. So from this point forward, I can just hit Command D. Now the other thing I'm going to do, I'll get rid of that mirror image in just a second. I'm going to hit Shift C. Shift C is my convert direction tool. Shift key C, and I'm going to click right there and make that a point, and click right here and make that a point. So what that did for me is make that a brush. So if I add that to my brush palette by making a new brush, and I'm going to make a new art brush. And I'm going to call this Taper 1. Now what I like to do with my brushes is I want to be able to shift the hue if I want to change the color. So I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to select that and delete. So now if I create a brush, I'm going to create a more calligraphy type of brush. Now, if you want, of course, to knock this down, I'm going to show you some really cool techniques here. So I'm going to create a face. The first thing I will do is create the eyebrows. And I'm going to create the eyes. Now, if that's too thick for you, of course, we can make a thinner brush. Okay, we're coming up here and making that much thinner. So I'll create the eyes. Maybe some eyeballs. Okay, I'm going to create some hair up here. I'll create the outline of the face. I'll create the nose. And I'll create the smile. And perhaps put some teeth in there. Okay, now I'll come down here and create the neckline. Maybe I want to have a shirt that is a tank top, put some arms in here, a thumb, some fingers, little pointed elbow, etc., etc. Now, what I can do is I'm going to select all, Command A, go to my scale tool, and I'm going to scale from this point here, holding down the Option key or Alt key for Windows, and I'm going to scale this down, hit Shift Tab backwards. I'm going to scale this down at, say, 70%. And hit Command D. So whatever you do to the object, it's under the object menu. Anything about the object is under the object menu. Object transform, I can repeat the transformation by hitting Command D. Okay, so let's continue back to our brush tool. So now I can put some pants in here. Too thick. Now, one of the things I could have done when I scaled is I could have made, well, actually this was selected. But if it's not selected, this will help you scale the objects. So let's come up here and make that much smaller. Go back to my B for brush tool and add a shoe. Now, because that was selected, that's why they did that. So I'm going to come down here and deselect it and add a shoe. Okay, now I can do all kinds of fun things up here, et cetera, et cetera. Now what I want to be able to do is I'm going to lock this into place temporarily. So I'm going to select all. Anything about the object is under the object menu. Object lock, Command 2, Control 2 for Windows. And I'm going to lock it into place. Now I'm going to go to my pencil tool, letter N. And I'm just going to create a outline of my object. Now I don't have to do this perfectly. It's just the understanding of just taking this one step at a time. And I'm just going to outline this as best I can. I'm going to do this rather quickly. And all I have to do, because I'm dealing with the mirror image, is I only have to do half the object. And there you go. So now I'm going to exchange black for white, Shift X, and now it's filled in. Now again, if you didn't get it exactly, that's not the point of this. I'm now going to go to my swatches, and let's fill this in with a light color. Now I can go down here to my swatches, and I can bring up all kinds of different colors, skin tones, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm just going to pick a very light orange color. Make sure you're in the, my mistake on that, I need to hit the X key and fill this in with an orange color. Arrange the object, anything about the object is in the object menu, and send to back. Okay, now here's what I'd like to do. Part of the reason I left this palette up here is I want to use my knife tool. And I'm going to use the knife tool, and basically the guide is the top of that little arrow on top of the thing that looks like a knife tool. So I'm going to basically come in here, and I'm going to cut this area here. Then I'm going to come down here and cut the arms. I'm going to come in here and cut the leg. Come in here and cut the shoe. Now the advantage of what I did is if I now hold down the Command key to select the object, I could then go and change it to a different color. Well, the skin color I'm going to leave alone. I probably didn't get that exactly here. I'm going to cut this right there to cut that off. So I'm going to basically change that to maybe red, change the pants to blue, change the shoes to brown. And let's change the hair area to black. So right there, I'm starting to get some really cool. Now, if you want to fix this up a little bit, because I'm in my direct selection tool, I can take this and I can pull this out. I can snap to the area, take this area, pull it out, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so there's my artwork inside of Illustrator using my mirror. Now, what I'm going to do is go to my layers. I'm going to collapse that. And I want to basically start over, make a change, save a change. So I'm going to basically drag this down to the new layer icon to make a duplicate, hide that, and that's called Mirror 2. So let's call that Mirror 2. Select all, delete, unlock, object, unlock all, Command Option 2, and delete. So if I go back to my Breathe for Brush tool, I'm back in business again. Okay, pretty cool stuff. Now, here's a really cool part. I want to have this selected. So again, I'm just going to, I don't need to have it symmetrical on this line. So I'm just going to take a shape like this and create a shape. So with the object selected, holding down the Command key. Now, if you hold down the Command key and the Option key or Alt key, I can get a group selection tool and select the whole thing. So I'm going to go back to my Appearance menu and hit the Effects, Distort, and I'm going to go back to Transform, Reflect, One Copy. So now I can get all kinds of interesting artwork here, and I'm going to take this down. Now, another thing we can do, if my cursor is up inside the stroke, I can hit the up arrow to make it bigger, the down arrow to make it smaller. I'm going to go with, say, 0.5 points. So what's really cool about this, if I hit Command Y right now, this is the object. That's all I'm going to see is the object. So if I create something now, I'm going to create something like that, or I can create something like this. So I can get some very interesting artwork instantly simply by creating something. Pretty cool. Okay. Now, because I set my hue up there, if I go back to my swatch, I could change the color. Because recall that in my brush palette, I went to hue, so therefore I can change the color. Now, I'm not too happy with this brush, so I'm going to go back to my ellipse tool again, and I'm going to create another ellipse, and I'm going to make this really, 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 really thin. And let's just make this black again. So Shift-C, I'm going to make this a point here, this a point here, and just drag this down. Actually, I'm going to go to my scale tool. Scale, let's scale this down horizontally, nothing, so I put 100%, not 0. Vertically, let's start this at, say, 55%. And Command D, Command D, Command D. So let's take that and make another brush out of it. So with the object selected, go up to my brushes. Now, if you want to bring up your brush palette, that might be an idea too. Click right there. Again, Art Brush. And let's call this Taper 2. Again, let's change the color. Actually, I'll leave it the way it is. That's fine. But I want to change this to Hue Shift. So I can basically change the color if I want to. So I'm going to select all, delete, Command A, go back to my brush tool again, and start creating brushes using that new brush that I just created, which is this brush here. Now again, notice that I lost the effect that I did before. So I'm going to go back a few steps and share something with you. I'm going to select everything. I'm going to deselect that. I'm going to basically delete everything. Select all, deselect, and delete. Okay, now the way it works is if I initialize that now and I go start drawing again, and I'm going to start drawing with this new brush that I've created. So therefore, it's going to remember the properties of what I just had. Pretty cool. Now, if that is too thin for your liking, again, I come up here and hit the up arrow key until I get the effect I'm looking for. Okay, so in this particular case, it's got a fill and a stroke, which is pretty darn cool. So again, because I did that, I can get all kinds of different things happening. But I just need to make sure that I've selected that and create. Again, if I want to go back to the other brush, I click in the brush, and there you go. All kinds of interesting objects. Okay, a spider, et cetera, et cetera. Now, here's the really cool part. I'm going to go back, and I'm going to use this again. And I'm going to cut that, select all, delete, and paste. Okay. Now, in my appearance menu, I already have a transformation set up there. I'm going to leave that transformation, and I'm going to add a transformation. So I'm going to come down here and go back to Distort, Transform. I'm going to apply a new effect, and we're going to rotate this on the bottom anchor point. So let's say that I wanted to have 7 of these. So I'm going to say 360 divided by 7. How many copies do I want? Well, if I want 7 total, I want 6 copies. And just like that, I have instant artwork. So now if I come in here and I create an object, I can create some really cool things because I have transformed the transformation. Now, if you want to see without this transformation, of course, I could turn that transformation off and just have something like that happening. If I want to see with both transformations, I'm going to select all again. So do that for a second. I'm going to take this transformation. I'm going to cut that. Let's take this one. I'm going to cut that and paste. Therefore, when I start drawing again, it's going to keep the properties of what I just had. I'm going to turn this back on. So there's endless possibilities that I can get. And all I'm doing, if I command Y, which is outline mode, these are all the shapes I have. Now, eventually, as you work with this more and more, you're going to be able to understand and distinguish what's going to happen when you create a shape. So it's really amazing that I can get instant artwork out of this. And of course, if I go up to my color here, I can change the color, double click here, maybe change it to blue, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So it's really darn fascinating. And this is something I discovered many years ago with the transformation appearance. So I like to have these palettes at my disposal, and I have them alphabetically, A, B, L, S. Now, I don't know what the acronym means, but it's a really cool, wonderful technique that you can start creating instant artwork by just moving a few lines around. I mean, it's endless possibilities. Now, here's another thing that's really cool. I'm going to cut that for a second, select all, delete. Now, of course, if you want to go back to your layers palette, if you like what you had there, then start duplicating. This way, because if you're coming up with an idea, say you're not sure where you want to go with it, you're looking for a client idea. It's a very, excuse me, powerful production technique. Now, I'm going to take this object again, and I'm going to go to my rotation tool, and I'm going to pick a point, R for rotation. I'm going to pick a point to rotate from. Now, I want to temporarily hide my palettes. I can do that by hitting the Tab key. The Tab key will hide. The Tab key will show. Tab key, hide. So I'm going to rotate this, but as I rotate this, I hold down the Option key to make a clone copy and the Shift key to constrain it. Make sure you let go of your mouse hand first. So now I can get some very interesting artwork, something you probably have never seen before. Pretty darn cool. And all I did was rotate this object off its axis. Now I'm going to command Y for a second, because I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to change this up a little bit. Maybe I want to go to my Convert Direction Point tool and change the direction point. So I can come in here and I can come out here. So if I command Y, I'm in a totally different shape. And if I select all, I'll go back. I'm going to scale this down a little bit. S for scale. Shift tab backwards. Let's scale this, let's say 66%. Go back to my rotation tool. And let's say I want to rotate from this point here. And I want to have 11 of these. Hold down the Option key or Alt key. Click. And I'm going to say 360 divided by 11. Make it copy, or I can hit Option, Return, or Alt Return from Windows. Here's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I hope that these little production techniques give you a better understanding of working smart online with Adobe Illustrator. Thanks for being here. Go check out thinkillustrator.com, and I will give you for free my 10 top production techniques and a way to work smarter. I'm here to help you every step of the way. I see a lot of YouTube videos on Illustrator and too many steps wasted. Let me give you an understanding of what I'm talking about. I'm sure a lot of you have seen the heart, how to create a heart. Well, of course, there's many ways to create a heart. I'm going to hit the Tab key to bring back mine. But the way I like to create a heart, which is really quite simple, is to start out with a rectangle. And if I take that rectangle, I'm going to fill that with, I'll just go with this pink color. So if I'm in my direct selection tool, I can't rotate, but if in my move tool, I could then rotate this holding down the Shift key. So now all I need to do is go to my Convert Direction tool, which is Shift C, and I can basically hold down the Shift key and move this up. Now, if you have Smart Guides on, as you move the other end up, it will basically tell you where to stop. Now, if you don't have smart guides on, it's Command U. Command U will turn smart guides on, and Command U will turn smart guides off. And that's the simplest way to create a heart. I think, time is money. So if you want to be good with power user techniques, essential power user techniques, I have the solution for you. Like I said, I've been using Illustrator for 33 years, teaching it here in New York City. Production techniques. I taught myself back in 1987, pulled my hair out at 2 o'clock in the morning. I had a better chance back then of getting, actually Reagan was still in office, so I had a better chance back then of getting Reagan on the phone than getting Adobe. So eventually I got so good at this that Adobe would hire me, fly me out to their California office to share with their staff, their Adobe staff, the best way to use Illustrator and Photoshop. So if there's a better way to do things, I want to help you every step of the way. So check out the rest of my channel. Go to thinkillustrator.com and get my free top 10 production techniques. Thanks again for being here. My name is Robert Farrell. Stay home, stay safe, stay positive. Carpe Diem 2020 and thinkillustrator.com.